Welcome to the second week of the Marist Young Adult Online Lenten Retreat. I'm BB Chang and I'm your host for this retreat. If you joined us last week, then you know that our retreat invites you to spend some time reflecting on a gospel reading. After the gospel is read, a reflection, some questions, and a suggested action are presented for your consideration. This week's reflection has been prepared by Michael Borey, a student at George Washington University and a graduate of Central Catholic High School in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Last week's gospel reading spoke to us about how Jesus faced his temptations. In her reflection, Catherine Weaning highlighted how we must move beyond our temptation of material things so that we can hear God's voice more clearly. We all have times where the many distractions of life can tempt us away from God and lead us far from God's plan. As you enter into this time of retreat, take a moment to quiet yourself and recall a time when your actions kept you away from God. Take a deep breath and place that situation into God's hands. Let go of your anxieties and ask God for forgiveness. Breathe in a sense of calm. Allow yourself to become more focused as you pray the following prayer. As you listen to the reading, pay attention for a word or phrase that catches your attention. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus took Peter, James, and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and do not be afraid. And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, Do not tell the vision to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead.
My name is Michael Borey, and I will be doing the reflection for this week's Gospel. This week's Gospel comes out of Matthew's Gospel, chapter 17, verses 1 to 13. It is the story of the Transfiguration, when Jesus brings Peter, John, and James to the top of a mountain where he is transfigured in front of their eyes. Moses and Elijah also appear and begin to talk with Jesus. God reaches out and speaks to Peter, James, and John. And at the end of the story, Jesus tells his apostles they are not allowed to talk about what they have witnessed until he has risen from the dead. We all go through periods of change and transfiguration in our own lives and in our faith. We all have experiences that change who we are and force us to grow as individuals. When reflecting on this week's past gospel, I began to think of my own experiences with transfiguration. Last summer, I thru-hiked the Camino de Santiago across the northern coast of Spain. After going through many ups and downs in my life that were all significant, this hike really changed who I am and helped me grow as a person. My Camino was truly a life-changing experience. It helped me grow up, mature, and see life in a different way. I learned how to be happy and know what I needed to do to make myself happy and successful. Upon returning home, I felt like a different person. I had learned so much about my life and who I am as a person. Through my experience on the Camino, my faith also underwent a transfiguration. I got to see how God works in the world and in many people's lives, and it really helped me strengthen my faith in God. Marist and Champagne also went through a transfiguration in his life, a pivotal moment. His transfiguration came when he decided to leave school and that he was going to spend the rest of his life dedicated to teaching young people. It was not what he had intended to do or what he thought he would end up doing in his life, but it was his calling. He went through a realization, and that school experience changed the course of his life and who he was as a person. Mountaintops are significant throughout the Bible as places where God communicates with his people. Again, in this story, God communicates to Peter, James, and John atop a mountain. In the midst of our hectic lives, do we have a mountaintop that allows us to communicate with God? Do we give him the time that he needs to communicate with us? God tells Peter, James, and John, "This is my son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." They were not expecting to hear such a voice, and when they did, they fell to the ground out of fear. Jesus came to their side and said, "Rise, and have no fear." What makes us fall to the ground out of fear? And who is there to help us get up and tell us it is okay, don't be afraid? After the coming of Elijah, Jesus tells Peter, James, and John, "But I tell you, Elijah has already come," and they did not recognize him. What important parts of our lives do we let pass by and slip through because we are so caught up in ourselves and what is going on in our everyday lives? We fail to see what else is happening around us. Think of a significant time in your life that has changed who you are. Why was that change necessary? Was it positive or negative? How did you come out stronger in the end?
In addition to considering the questions posed by Michael, take a moment to reflect upon these additional questions. What transfiguration or change do you hope for during this Lenten Camino? How can this change help you make Jesus Christ known and loved? As you bring your time of prayer to a close, recall the words or phrases that spoke to you during the reading and let them stay in your mind and heart throughout the week. Pay attention to one concrete thing that you can do in response to the gospel. Here are a couple of thoughts that might help. Michael challenges us to find our own mountaintop or place of prayer where we too can come to know that we are God's beloved children. Commit yourself to spend some additional time in prayer this week. Besides personal change, prayer can help us to recognize the needs of others, especially the needs of those who are unable to make changes in their own lives. Often, those who are burdened with socioeconomic, interpersonal, or emotional issues can find it difficult to feel like a child of God. Consider spending some time this week with an individual who might need to feel God's love, or with an organization that addresses issues that hinder growth. On behalf of the Marist Young Adult Program, thanks for participating in the second week of our online Lenten retreat.